If you love defense, that Dogs defense last year, historic, amazing, top of the line, wrecking crew by any measurement. It was incredible. What do they have coming back? Tons of guys, lose a ton, but a bunch of stars next to the guys that need to step up and get it done as they always do. We got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line, Dawn of the Dog, to break it down for us. Savannah, how you doing?
Doing good. Halfway through, well, a little over halfway through spring practice, and young guys are doing well. Older guys are stepping up. It just seems good to have football back. Had the first scrimmage last Saturday, and a lot of discussion came out of it. And so everything is lively in Athens.
Lively in Athens. Okay, good. Before we move on to the 22 defense, we can't dismiss or not give homage to what happened in 2021. Opening night against Clemson. I know Clemson struggled offensively last year. I know that they weren't the team that they had been on that side of the ball before, but they still have Clemson athletes. And Georgia from week one, play one, series one, just lived in the opponent's backfield. That game obviously stood out, and of course they win it on a pick six. The other game was the Arkansas game. And then Arkansas, had turned in already some good efforts against good teams, and then proved after that to be a top 15 team in the country. And watching that game and just seeing where, okay, Arkansas, they scored 51 points the next week at Ole Miss. And they were a really good team. And Georgia just didn't even allow them to run their plays most of the time. And I thought that the Arkansas game is the one that sold me, is this defense is going to be devastating this year. I haven't seen anything like this in a long time.
Yeah, that was probably one of my all-time favorite games, even over the national championship, just because of that dominant defensive performance and them holding Arkansas, who was coming in with a ton of offensive production, and holding them to absolutely nothing. And to shut out back-to-back SEC opponents is an even bigger accomplishment. Even if it was Vanderbilt, to be able to do something like that is absolutely incredible. And I mean, you could probably mirror that defense to the 2011 Alabama one. That was, I think, 8 or 9 points a game. I don't remember exactly off at the top of my head, but to see a defense kind of shut down opponents, no matter what kind of offense that they threw at them, was absolutely incredible. It's just dumbfounded how much each week went by, and you continue to get impressed, and you're still like, okay, well, you were almost waiting for that moment of, this is the game that, okay, we'll see the weak point, which we did against Alabama in the SEC championship, but then they adjusted and made things happen in the national championship. And so it just comes down to, a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work, and that discipline that Kirby Smart's won out of them, and them playing as one whole unit. That camaraderie and all of that came from last spring really paid off in the long run. But it's crazy because people are like, oh, Georgia lost so many people, but there's I think 16 guys on the team that have taken more than 70 snaps and are rated graded 70 or higher on PFF. So Georgia's reloading, and it's really exciting. But that 2021 defense is going to go down as probably one of the best in history. And you got to think about it with the modern football and how football is today, probably the best since it kind of made that evolution into what football is. And so that's a pretty good title to have. And then to win a national championship, it definitely solidified it too. If not, there's probably some arguments there, but that championship win definitely gave that defense the best title, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, well, like I said off the top, you had to watch the games to appreciate the dominance, just to watch the physical dominance. And again, that Arkansas game just sticks in my mind first and foremost. But then just to make the comparisons between what teams would produce against everybody else, take a Tennessee that was rolling up yards and points against everybody and just had a big offensive year. But then, against sorry about that. Did you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I gotta shut off my phone. Goes through my audio board. Let me start that over.
That's okay.
Yeah, the stats tell us one thing, but you had to watch the games. And again, that Arkansas game was when it really slapped me in the face that, man, this team doesn't even allow a good offense to run its offense, run the plays. The plays don't even get started half the time. They're like pushing guards in the backfield at running backs, and the plays just get blown up. And then just to make the score and yardage comparisons, when you see a team like Arkansas, Tennessee, who have really productive offenses, are tearing it up against other pretty good defenses, and then they just get, the Tennessee scores early and then nothing after that. It's just it was phenomenal. So spinning this ahead to 22, the two monsters up front, Jordan Davis, that gained that star tag. And unfortunately, when you've got the national, whether other opposing fan bases or just national media looking at it, they're not going to talk about 15 guys. They're going to lock in on like one guy or two guys. And so Jordan Davis was that guy out of the gate. But Devontae Wyatt, he impressed me just as much. He was a monster, especially late in the season. But they lose those two guys that, it all starts along the defensive front and in the middle if you want to have a dominant defense. So where do we start there?
We start with Jalen Carter, who is a rising junior. People forget that he was just a sophomore last year and putting up the production numbers that he was. And essentially he was sharing the load with Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt. But the craziest thing about him is he's going to be better than Jordan Davis. He's going to probably end up being one of the best defensive linemen to ever come out of the University of Georgia because of his sheer athletic ability, his speed, his intelligence that he just has when he's on the football field. And he's a natural born leader as well. He's somebody that just is going to explode this year. He's going to be in the spotlight. It's going to be his defensive line. And I think you're going to see a little bit more athleticism, even though it was extremely athletic last year with Jordan Davis and all them. Jalen Carter brings something else. He has the ability to really kind of use whatever move he needs to get past the offensive line. And he's somebody that just is going to have a big year. And while I don't think he'll be somebody that comes back for a fourth season, and that's really early to predict now, but he's going to have it's just going to be a breakout season after seeing him already do it 2 seasons in a row. Everybody is just pins and needles ready for him. As long as he stays healthy, he's going to be really, really fun to watch. Another guy from the defensive line that I would like to see kind of step up in that role is Trammell Walthour. And then there's Zion Logue and Warren Brinson. I know I said one person, but those are 3 guys that have been around. Walthour is a redshirt senior, Zion Logue is a redshirt junior, and then Warren Brinson is a junior. So those are 3 guys that have been around the program for the last couple of seasons and just really have been more in the cleanup duty. Brinson was somebody that kind of showed a lot of athletic and grittiness to him when he got to come into the ball game. And then Zion Logue has really long arms and has some athletic ability too. Those 3 just really haven't been able to kind of implement themselves into the 2-3 deep lineup. But this spring has been something that has allowed them to kind of step up and solidify that spot, because if not, you have guys like Mikael Williams, who's a freshman coming in as mid-year. There's Christian, why can't I think of his last name? He's another. You got Barrett Alexander, Christian Miller. Not Christian. Maybe it is Christian Miller. Yeah, Christian Miller, another incoming freshman. There's so many names that I have to know now because we have 19 mid-year guys, and it's just like, let's just let them all play and see what happens and then go from there. But the defensive line, I think, is going to be a lot better than people think it is, even by losing 2 significant guys in Jordan Davis, even Trayvon Walker at edge. Like, you ever have Nolan Smith, who can put his hand in the dirt if he needs to, or if he can, line up an outside linebacker position too. So Georgia's reloaded. And that's what's kind of crazy is everybody's like, oh, Georgia lost this and this and this on the defensive front. No, you got 2 or 3 deep up there that can really have the opportunity to step up and do something this season. But Jalen Carter, that's going to be somebody that's not many teams are going to be able to stop or do much with, because he's going to cause that much havoc. I think he had like 27 or 30 quarterback pressures last year, give or take. He was right behind Trayvon Walker in terms of leading the team in that area. And to me, a lot of people think about sacks and other things, but I think that the quarterback pressure is something that Kirby Smart and the defensive side of the ball really hone in on, because that's causing the quarterback to make mistakes. That's causing him to get out of his rhythm and everything else, which ends up allowing the linebackers or whoever long enough to make a play, or whatever needs to happen. And so that's something that I started really keeping up with last year was quarterback pressures, and Jalen Carter was a machine there.
We got Savannah Lee Richardson on the line from Dawn of the Dog. Check out her work and everybody else there at Dawn of the Dog covering Georgia football. The spring game's coming up in about less than 2 weeks. And of course, subscribe here at the Voice of College Football and give us a like as well. You enjoy the content, others will as well. So share the videos. All right. I bring up a few different plays that kind of mark the season, the pick six to win the Clemson game, and then the series of blown up plays against Arkansas. And then I think of going to the college football playoff game against Michigan. And there's a zillion plays we could go to there on the defensive side as they held Michigan without a touchdown until whatever, it was garbage time at that point. But there was a swing pass out to one of the Michigan backs, Blake Corum or Donovan Edwards, and Nakobe Dean shot out of a cannon across the field and just wrapped them up like that. And it was like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he's a special athlete. He moves on. Just looking at the linebacking core, who's the next in line and who's coming back.
Yeah, linebackers are probably the one area that's kind of been depleted the most. You saw Quay Walker leave. You have Channing Tindall gone. Nakobe Dean is also the big guy, the general. And so the big question this spring is who's going to be the next general. And Jamon Dumas Johnson has been somebody that has kind of really taken up that role of becoming that general, if you want to say. That role is still kind of in the air. Now it's kind of going back and forth with my answer, but this is the area you'll see Nolan Smith become a leader, but he's not going to be an inside linebacker that kind of controls what needs to happen like Nakobe Dean will. But Jamon Johnson Dumas is someone that I think can. Samael Mondon Jr. is another one that can kind of handle that position as well. Then you also have guys like Tresman Marshall, Xavier Sori, MJ Sherman. MJ Sherman is someone that really needs to have a big season. He's been around the program for a couple of seasons now. He's a junior, but he hasn't broken into the mold, and it's crazy because there have been 5 stars in front of him, and so to sit there and say, hey, he hasn't done this or he hasn't done that, but you've seen other guys kind of come up and do whatever they need to. So he's somebody that was injured when he came out of high school, so he's been rehabbing and stuff, but I would really like to see him come in and take over that general role. But Pop, which is what the team calls Johnson Dumas, the long name, he's a sophomore, and he had a pick six early on in the season. I think it was either against UAB or South Carolina. And so he's got a little pizzazz to him, and Kirby specifically called him out this spring in a press conference and said that he's been somebody that's really kind of taken that leadership role. I'm really excited about Nolan Smith, though, at the linebacker position, because I think they're going to bring him back more to play where he needs to be, where we all thought he would be, instead of being more of an edge guy. And he's going to be the vocal leader. He was last year. He was always somebody that kind of they depended on to give a good quote or here or there, but now it's really his defense. And then you also have Robert Bill Jr., who really came on strong in the last 8 games of the season or so, I believe. He's the one that replaced Adam Anderson after all of that kind of stuff went down, and he led the team in sacks with only half of the production. So just thinking about what he was able to do in the time he got with significant snaps, I'm really excited that he decided to come back instead of declaring for the NFL draft, because it's going to be kind of what we saw with Jordan Davis and even Devontae Wyatt in terms of elevating their stock. Both him and Nolan Smith need one more season to really hone in on their skills and leadership and whatever else they need to learn, because they're already both significantly talented physically and they can do whatever you need to. But something about taken that 4th year and really learning about what it takes to be a leader and in charge and being the playmaker is what those two guys are. That's what they need to do. They need to be the leaders of this defense and that linebacker group. But you also have Jalen Walker, who's a true freshman, another mid-year. I feel like I keep talking about the mid-years, but that's also something Kirby continues to brag about, is how impressive they have been coming in, no nonsense, kind of just joining in, taking significant reps at the 2s and the 3s to get some, clean up playing time or even get in special teams or whatever. And Jalen Walker has been somebody who's been hitting hard, getting a lot of praise from media and Kirby. And so there's just some guys from at least the linebacker position that I'm excited. There's also Chaz Chambliss, who had that really big hit in the postseason. that got ejected or whatever for targeting that wasn't targeting, but he's a headhunter. He likes to play aggressively, and I think that's what you're going to see is a little bit more scrappiness instead of polish this year. I think you'll see polish to 2023, but this year it's going to be about Nolan Smith, Robert Bill, kind of teaching these youngins how to continue on being elite.
Talking dogs and talking defense here with Savannah Lee Richardson from Dawn of the Dog. Darian Kendrick moves on to the NFL. He had a big season coming in from Clemson, 4 picks. Set us up at cornerback.
So you got Keely Ringo coming back as your main shutdown corner. Really excited to see what he's going to be able to do in his second full season. His first year at Georgia, he was suffering through like a shoulder injury, so he wasn't able to play at all. But he kind of burst onto the scene and really did a great job at preventing big plays. And if he did give up a big play, he used his speed to kind of run him down or whatever Georgia needed him to do. And then, of course, the pick six and him taking advantage of that moment as a redshirt freshman and being able to, run it back 79 yards. Instant celebrity in Athens. Won't ever have to pay for a drink or anything like that ever again. And that's the kind of things that build confidence in a cornerback to carry him on. Like, a lot of people have like this second year slump, but I don't think Keely Ringo is going to be one of those. I think he's going to take what he learned and grow from it. Georgia will have to replace Lewis Cine at the safety position, but you also have Chris Smith, who's coming back for a 6th year, kind of taking a COVID situation, which he probably could have declared for the NFL draft and gone as a free agent or even later in the rounds. I'm not sure that he would have been an early round guy, but Chris Smith is somebody that would have probably been taken. But I'm glad he came back because it gives another leadership in that depleted secondary. It's still thin. Georgia needs all of the guys that are on, playing in the secondary to be able to step up and play some kind of significant role this year because it's still probably the thinnest area in terms of depth on the defensive side of the ball because they've had a bunch of transfers go out and go on to other places. But one thing that I've noticed about Kirby is he's kind of transforming his recruiting, not in the sense of less 5 stars or fewer, whatever. It's more about finding the kids that are willing to put in the work right away, who understand that it takes time to become a starter in the SEC and aren't expecting, most of the reps as a true freshman. He wants guys that are okay with waiting their turn or working their tail off to get whatever they earn onto the field. And this group of 2022 signees is someone like that. You have Malachi Starks, who's going to be like a star. He's really, really impressive. Could play probably anywhere he wanted to on the field. He could play receiver or whatever, but I'm really excited to see him back there with Fran Brown, the new defensive backs coach. We slow down a little bit. And then you also have Ja'Cory Thomas, who is a safety that I'm really versatile. Can probably play corner if he needs to, but definitely going to use him as a safety because that's the one area Georgia will need more bodies at, losing Lewis Cine. And then you also have Dan Jackson, who's redshirt junior, not a scholarship player, but he's earned significant playing time because he stepped up when players were hurt last year. And he has the moxie and the passion for football that kind of like old school. You see the guys that not everybody would be, the ones that you're kind of surprised to see on the football field, and that's Dan Jackson. But he will knock your head off if you give him a chance to. He got to talk with the media, and he was just all he could talk about was the opportunity and taking advantage of that opportunity. And so I think he's going to be, even though he's not a scholarship guy, he's a leader, and he's kind of shown that you work hard enough, you're going to be somebody that gets put on the football field. You also got Javon Bullard, and he's a sophomore, kind of behind the last group of folks that have came in, and he's working his way up. You also have Kamari Lassiter, another one like that's kind of been around, waiting his turn, and he's going to get significant playing times this year, corner. And then you also have William Poole, who is a redshirt senior, who decided to also come back. And I can't forget about Tyke Smith, the transfer from West Virginia, who also decided to stick around Athens one more year. He's still rehabbing his ACL injury, but he's going to be somebody that's going to be able to hopefully be back for fall camp and give some significant reps for Georgia. A couple of the other mid-year guys like Dalen Everett, the once-time Clemson commit, he is somebody that's already getting praise, and bunch of the practice reports have talked about how he is someone who's kind of breaking into the significant playing time, the ones that are going to go with the ones and the twos. And, the practice reports right now, they say ones and twos. That's just kind of where the media sees them at that specific time. That doesn't mean that is where they're going to be. But to see someone like Everett, who is a true freshman, come in and just kind of break his way into it. I predicted it a little bit. I've been doing a series on the 2022 signees and talking about how they fit into the team, if they have any opportunity to play this year or not. And he was somebody that I predicted that would break into the mold just because of his athletic ability. Having him on one end and Keely Ringo on the others for your corners would produce two of the most aggressive and athletic corners. Georgia's going to have a great secondary once they get the depth that they need. They're just kind of young. You're going to have like a redshirt sophomore, and then you have the Chris Smith, Jackson, Poole, and Smith, but it's still really young and really don't need any injuries there for sure. Great, Champ. Thank you, Champ.
That would be Champ Bailey, everyone. Of
He's
course.
About the secondary, so he had to chime in.
He was on cue. 24 chiming in there. Very nice. 2-4. All right.
4.
What?
Or he was 24 in the NFL. He was 4? He was number 4 in Georgia. So
was he only number 4?
Mm-hmm.
Really? That was just in the NFL. Okay, 2-4. I think a Champ Bailey 2-4. Okay, it's been a long time. You kind of answered my question because I was looking at the 2022 class and I counted 14 guys on the defensive side alone that were ranked in the top 15 of their positions. That's a ridiculous flood of talent. So you mentioned a lot of guys that you think, Jalen Walker, Christian Miller, and some other guys that could make a pretty immediate impact, maybe not start, but have a significant role, meaningful reps against good teams.
Yeah, they're especially the defensive line guys and the secondary guys. Those are the two positions that need playmakers. They need guys that are willing to step up and put in that work. And because you've had, I don't want to, drop names at the defensive line because I hate doing that because everybody's working hard and stuff. But that position is open because you have guys that haven't lived up to their potential. And so you have Mikael Williams is another one that's kind of already been making a name for himself. And Kirby had to kind of shut it down and be like, look, just because he's out there, that doesn't mean anything. He's learning. I'm having to teach him this and this and this. And so that's going to be a position to watch because Bear Alexander, while he is out due to injury, his size and just his sheer force and physical ability is going to be something to watch over the summer and into fall camp because he could just explode onto it. And Miller's another one that could just kind of use his raw talent to push his way up the depth chart because they're just physically that gifted. And Trace Scott can kind of mold them as they're figuring it out because you have Jalen Carter and everybody else ahead of them, but then that kind of second string is wide open in my opinion. And Miller and Alexander are going to be two guys that are going to push themselves up the depth chart just because they want it bad enough. They kind of have that gritty attitude of, I don't care that I'm a freshman. Like, I'm just as big as you, but you have more experience in terms of knowing the playbook. So if I work that hard in that area, then I can beat you physically because I'm already there. Sean Washington is another one that's big bodied. He's going to be kind of a project, in my opinion. I think Trey Scott brought him in to kind of see what he can do with him in the interior on the defensive line. But yeah, those are, a couple of guys that I've been watching and just kind of eyeing. But then Jaheim Singletary is another cornerback that could, it's just Georgia's secondary is kind of a free-for-all. You have your veteran leaders that decided to come back, but then you have a bunch of spots that just can be taken right away from a young corner that could beat out a sophomore who maybe isn't working as hard as he was, or he is now, but he just isn't physically as gifted as Everett or Singletary. But yeah, those are two areas that I'm really, really excited for with the mid-years. And I know we're not talking offense, but that's another side of the ball too that has already seen the mid-years kind of not taking over, but making a name for themselves. And I enjoy that because you get 19 in January, and that's enormous. That's kind of unheard of. I remember like 13 back when Nick Chubb's freshman years, or right around that time, and thinking, oh my God, like how are you gonna use 13 right away? But you've had players join the team back in December when they were working on Michigan, working on getting ready for Alabama, already putting in reps and work. And that's where Kirby has changed his recruiting. I know I mentioned it before, and I don't want to be too repetitive, but they're not just going for 5 stars who look great on film. They want kids that understand it's going to take hard work and dedication, and I'm not just going to throw NIL money at you or anything else. Like, you're going to have to earn it. And that's kind of the definition of this 2022 class, is determined and ready to kind of make a name for themselves and, keep the eliteness going, because that 2021 group left a legacy. And it's like, what are you going to do with it now? Are you going to be another LSU, or are you going to be someone like Bama? And I know that's a big comparison, but like, you either continue to reload and you continue to contend, or you end up like an LSU or even maybe a Clemson, who has seen depletion in some areas and aren't nearly as competitive as they were when they had, that massive defensive front that they had the last few years or whatever. Just giving a few examples. But yeah, determined 2022, that's synonyms at this point.
Dogs on defense, talking it up with Savannah Lee Richardson, Dawn of the Dog. Will they be as good as 2021? That might be an unreasonable expectation. Do they need to be that good? Probably not. If they're anywhere close to that, and they should be, they've got the talent, they've got the scheme in place, it should be fine. It should be more than fine at Georgia on the defensive side of the ball. I would guess that they're arguably going to be the best defense in the country again.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people I've read Twitter and message boards and stuff of, oh, they're not going to be as good. They lost 15. I'm like, well, okay, you reload. You have to reload. If you want to contend with Alabama, Clemson, with Ohio State, with Oklahoma, with all of these guys, you have to continue to reload. And that's what Kirby has done. He's consistently recruited top 5, top 3 recruiting classes every single year. And now he's got the culture in place. The players understand what it takes, and it's going to continue to grow. And my biggest thing is, you have on defense, I believe 8 or 9 that have over 70 snaps and significant playing time, because Georgia was able to rotate so much last year and get people significant play, like not just cleanup duty either. Arkansas game, Vanderbilt game, Auburn game, even going into later in the season, Georgia Tech, Charleston Southern. Those are the games that you saw, where Georgia gave up a touchdown late in the game or whatever, but like significant game time decisions were being made, significant game time. Like, it was just players that had to go out there and show that the coaches what they had. And that, to me, is going to be the difference maker in Georgia this year versus LSU when they won following that year. I think Georgia's got so much depth in certain areas that have gotten the playing time that they needed. Maybe not all the way, but like enough for them to understand and not have like this smack in the mouth, week 1 and being like, oh crap, like this is big boy football. No, we've played, we've been there, we've done that. And so I think Georgia's defense is going to be one of the best in the SEC for sure. I'd like to see themselves prove themselves a little bit more before just going out and being like, yeah, they're going to be as good as they were last year, because last year's defense was generational. Like, you're not going to see another defense like that for probably another 10 years, like, 2011 to 2021, whatever. Even then, I don't even know, because that just was such a unique team and unique bond, and that domination is just something that you don't hardly ever see. But Kirby doesn't play around when it comes to defenses. We saw him at Alabama, and now it's coming to Georgia. So they can say what they want, but this defense is reloading. It's going to be good.
There it is. Savannah Lee Richardson, Dawn of the Dog. Savannah, we appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. I know I rambled, but I'm excited about this. I love defense, and so I'm excited about this group.